Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Armchair Racers podcast. Today's guest is a special one, Steven Spees. Without further ado, we'll get into the real racing news. Derek Cope, I think is he the 1990, the 1991 winner, Kenny?
1990.
1990. So he's going to be running this year, and his team already has a charter, so he makes the race automatically.
Yeah, what's your reaction to that, I guess?
Kind of surprised he would still want to do it. I don't know what's the driving factor. Maybe he's a little short on money and wants to do it. I'm not really sure. Maybe it was a sponsor kind of deal. We're like, hey, if you get Derek Cope, we put our name on the car. I don't know, but it sure would be cool if he were to win.
Oh, for sure. The thing is, I'm a little bit worried because he hasn't run a super speedway race since like 2006. Um, and not to say that he's incompetent or anything, but man, I don't know. I hope he comes out unscathed, you know?
Or at least
Um,
semi. I mean, he can always ride around the back of the pack all day and just collect the winnings for like 23rd place.
yeah, he could, and maybe that's what he'll do. But yeah, and a lot of people are saying, oh, this is a failure with the charter system because uh, he makes the race automatically. That car has a charter, so whatever driver enters, regardless of how competent they are, they make the race no matter what. And
Yeah, it's not a failure with the charter system. The charter system was invented for this reason. A Rick Hendrick could put Derek Cope in a car and he'd make the race.
right, but it's just a thing that a lot of people are complaining about. To me, I don't know, it doesn't really bother me that much. We'll see how he does.
Yep. Next up, AJ Almandinger is going to run the Daytona Road Course. What are your thoughts on that, Kenny?
I think there's going to be quite a bit of crossover now between like some Xfinity guys running Cup and Cup guys running Xfinity to get more laps on road courses. And can't say I'm surprised with how Colleague is. They're going to start dabbling into the Cup Series. They're planning on running full time in 2022. So that this doesn't surprise me that he's going to be the guy to run for them at Daytona. And he'll be competitive, I'm sure. We'll see how their car is prepared, if it's going to be like an in-house colleague car or if it's going to be like a Childress car. I don't remember if they specified that, but
Could be a Spire car too.
could be a Spire car. Could be a Spire car prepared by Ganassi.
Yep.
Um, so we'll see. That might affect what I think, but might affect the reliability of that car. We always seem to. I remember in the past seeing a lot of these road course ringers come into a cup race with crummy equipment and run really well, but then they break something. So we'll see how that goes.
My mind automatically goes to like Sonoma in like 2016 or 2017, where AJ was like leading the race or doing really well, and he just money shifted, going across the start finish line or something, and just blew the trans.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Third point on the list is Austin Cindric is going to attempt to make the Daytona 500 in it's like a third Penske car, right? Did they specify the number of that car?
Would be like a fourth Penske car, wouldn't
Or
it? I
yeah, it would be. Yeah.
33, which is weird because I didn't think he owned the 33. Like he's had like 77, 66, 06, 01, 02.
Well, that the car that was last 33 was that I forget the name of the team. They were affiliated with Childress, but it's not Childress's number. And since they haven't run in a few years, I'm wondering if that number was kind of open. Um, but yeah, so Cindric's gonna try to make the 500. He should, if he doesn't like get wrecked in his races or whatever, he should have decent qualifying speed, I would guess. Um, so yeah, and he's gonna be another guy to expect in the Cup Series in 2022. But that's when the cars are gonna change, so that'll be interesting to see how he adapts.
How many? Because four people without charters should make the race, right? How many
Yep.
people without charters are trying to make the race?
I think that there's right now there's like around like 42 or like 44 to 46 total drivers trying to make the race. Um,
Jeez, okay, that
yeah,
should
there's
be
a
fun for
yeah.
speed.
So you got let's see, you got Austin Cindric, McMurray's locked in, isn't he?
I think he's locked in. Yeah.
I think he is. which is the next point on our list.
Yeah, that's why I wrote running, is
Yeah,
I think he's locked in.
I think like Chad Fincham, I think, is trying to make it. I had a whole list. I think was Kaz Grala trying to make it. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But yeah, Jamie McMurray's coming back to run the 500 in that Spire 77 car was really competitive last year with Ross Chastain being a Ganassi prepared car. So um, yeah,
He was
the
doing really well until pretty late in the race. He just made a move. I'm not going to say over his head, but it was over the grip of the tires.
oh yeah, and I mean he went down like to the apron and like entering the corner and just it just wasn't gonna work.
It was like a slider.
It was a video game move. And but I mean Jamie Mack the year before he ran his last race and that was in a I thought that was in Spire car. I don't know. It was
I think it was an Aspire car.
yeah, it was just different number. It was like
Right. It was
40
40.
something.
Yeah, it was 40.
And I think he got a top 10 in that race. So Jamie's been really good at, you know, super speedway racing his whole career. So he's got just as good a shot at anybody, especially with how things have gone the last few years with all the wrecks and whatnot. While you talk about the next few points, I'm gonna see if I can look for a list of it, like a list of all the people trying to make the 500.
Next up, Bowman and Byron had their new schemes released. Byron's is a bit of a surprise for me because usually the way like DuPont or Axalta has done it in previous years was you have the same paint scheme every year for the car until you come out with a new car design. So like the look of the car has changed, and then a year after that you update the scheme. So like for instance, Gordon had the rainbow up until 2000, he had the flames up until 2008 with the COT, and then they switched obviously to the Monte Carlo in 2000, and then the um, the Impala, the COT in 2008. And then they kept doing that. Like 2013, they came out with the new Chevy SS, and then in 2014, he switched to the black with the flames like we've seen. So I was a bit cut out by Byron's scheme change. Bowman's though not really. Ally's been changing it subtly with Jimmy Johnson. This time I decided, I think they decided to do a bit of a rebranding, but it still looks good. Next, Kelly Blue Book re-signed with Chase Elliott for 2 races a year for 2 more years. If you guys remember, they were on the hood of his car when he won at Charlotte this year on the Wednesday race. Um, and then lastly, Thor Sport and RSS Racing are switching to Ford. Kenny, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was, or I actually wrote part of that point. RSS is switching to Ford, and ThorSport is switching out of Ford. They're going. Everybody's saying they're going back to Toyota. Um, anyways, my thoughts of that are. I'm saddened to see Ryan Sieg's team switch away from Chevy. I rooted for them a lot last few years. Had a really good showing, um, and they had seemingly a good connection with RCR. I'm wondering if maybe he caught the eye of Ford and they kind of came in with a bunch of money or some money and it was something he couldn't pass up. If so, don't blame him for doing that. Um, and I'll still root for him. And I really like Ryan Sieg. Um, as far as Thor Sport, it's kind of a weird thing with them. They were Toyota, switched to Ford just like a few years ago, and now they're going back to Toyota. So I don't
I
really
think that was a money thing, and then all of a
probably
sudden, the only two teams doing well with Toyotas and the trucks were like Kyle Busch's team and Stuart Friesen's. I don't think Stuart Friesen was doing as good in the Toyota as Toyota wanted them to, so they decided like, hey, we need to win more races in trucks. Let's pick up ThorSport again. Maybe, I don't know. I assume they gave him more money than they wanted.
had to have been because I mean think about it too. Let's say if money wasn't even a factor. Let's say it was strictly just based on the manufacturer. I mean you look at what Steve or what Stuart Friesen did in his first year with Toyota. He was garbage, absolutely garbage, and he was really good in Chevrolets up in the last year. He finally got his first couple wins in the series, and then this last year he was terrible.
I mean, you look at too, like GMS Racing was dominant,
Right.
okay, in the chase and all year, and they're in Chevrolets, and it's a 4 truck team. So maybe Toyota decided they wanted to step up their game, and ThorSport was like, "Hey, this isn't working out with Ford. If you give us more monies."
Thing is now too is there's not really any competitive Ford teams left. I mean, there's hardly any Ford teams at all anymore. Um, it it's kind of weird in both the Xfinity series and in the Truck series. Ford is like by far the most exclusive make. The Xfinity series up until coming up this year, adding Ryan Sieg's team, they basically just had the 22 and the 98, which were
Oh
really.
yeah,
And then now in the trucks, they basically just had ThorSport. I know Jesse Little's team, that 97 truck, that was a Ford, but I don't know if they're going to be running. So it was like pretty limited. Um,
good point.
I did find a kind of informal entry list for the open cars for the Daytona 500. 44 drivers are officially announced. At least two more possible. So Chad Fincham is one of them. Um, the 16 car is a Colleague car that's confirmed, but they don't know the driver. I assume it'd be like Almandinger.
Or
Maybe
maybe Haley.
it could be Haley too. 33 with Austin Cindric. 36 with David Reagan, which that could be a
He's
competitive car.
pretty good on plate tracks. Yeah.
Ryan Preece is an open car this year, which because his charter kind of changed hands, which is kind of a sad thing to see. But hopefully they still attempt all the races. The 62 with Noah Gregson, Beard Motorsports. That's the team that uh, Brennan Gaughan
Brennan Gunn.
ran with for a few years. The 66 with Timmy Hill, and then the 96 with Ty Dillon, kind of a one-off thing with Gaunt Brothers. He's trying to work on more races, but so far it's to be determined. But those are your confirmed open cars. Now, if you had to pick out of those drivers, four of them to make the field, who'd you pick?
I'd like to see Ty Dillon make the field because I like Ty Dillon. I think he has a lot more talent than people think or remember or want to think he has. It'd be cool to see the 16 car make the field. I'm not a big fan of Tim Hill just because the way he moved William Byron in Texas. In my opinion, like the bump and run really isn't a thing you do at Texas, but it is what it is. He seems like a cool guy. Um, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think if Logic is going to pick for me, it's probably going to be Cindric, the Colleague car, Ryan Preece, and probably, probably David Reagan.
Yeah, probably Reagan because he's
Um,
got the skill, and their cars are usually pretty decent on the plate tracks.
right. I sure hope that Preece makes it. Man, that'd be.
I
He
think
already.
if he doesn't make it, it'd be a huge blow to that team and the sponsors of that team.
Yeah, I mean they already had such a terrible year last year, and if they start out the year like this, not making that, and then Ricky Stenhouse doesn't have a partner to draft with, it's gonna be rough. Um, but anyways, we'll move on to the iRacing news. Got a lot of iRacing news to cover at some point in this podcast. Few leagues we're gonna skip over this week because neither of us participated because of a large event that happened this week. But
Or
Austin, I'll
because
let you.
they didn't happen, like the leagues themselves, like SCRL or GTRL, formerly SCRL, didn't happen. It was
Yes.
canceled for this weekend because the Daytona 24.
So I'll let you take the reins for the BRL stuff that you saw.
Yeah, so BRL, I was in the dirt midgets. I really didn't participate because I don't want to tire my, well, wear myself out before the NEP trucks in the Daytona race. So I mostly just watched Brandon Proudfoot. Surprise, surprise, won the race. He got challenged though by Chris Davis and Justin Morton. Seemed like they had fun in the race. And then going to Saturday BRL, I did the street stocks. I started fourth, I think, on the outside, and it's 5 flags. And those cars, you really couldn't do much on the outside. We only had 2 cautions, and I was on the outside for the original start, and then for the restart, the last restart, I was on the inside, and I think I got up to like 13th to 10th or something. But the bottom line is only as good as the person two cars or one car ahead of you, and it just didn't move as much as I would have liked. So 10th in that, and the SKs, I got the EOL because some people can't drive, and I got wrecked twice. So I just kind of towed into the pits. And those cars, I'm pretty pissed off. You can't spin turn those cars, and you can't even turn around in a straightaway without doing like a 5 point turn. And then moving on to the Grand National League, um, a little messed up the starting order because we're pretty sure we got started in order of I rating, which it makes sense why you were third, JR was first, and James was second, Justin was fourth. Even to the people with the least I rating in the back, because we did look it up. So I started 13th, made my way up to 8th, and then there's a big wreck, and then I got 5th.
Yeah, so that was that like lap 60 something when that wreck happened?
79, there
Seven.
was that wreck with Mark and Tim.
Yeah, that was talk about that from your perspective out of turn two there.
Well, Tim and I had run down Mark for a long time because he was up with you guys, and then he started falling back. And as soon as he hit Tim and the rest of us, Tim started racing him really hard. Mark changed how he raced, and I'm not going to say he was racing dirty. It's his prerogative to make it hard for Tim to pass, but in my opinion, he was being too much of a dickhead about it, just by like the way he was going into the corner and kind of pinching Tim off and pinching him down and holding him up. Um, and then I guess Tim finally went in there and um, he had the room to put his nose there. And I'm not sure if Mark chopped him in the middle of the corner, but sure enough, the cars are shaped like wedges. And I'm sure Tim didn't mean to spin them because Tim is a lot better racer than that. And I know because Tim would often go into the corner near him and then have to back out of it because he wasn't at the rear axle or whatever we raced to. So uh, we go into turn two. I was looking at Mike Holloway's rear bumper to make sure I didn't hit him, and then all of a sudden I see his car kind of like, lean forwards because he's locking up his brakes because Mark's getting spun out, and I slam on my brakes, but it's too late. I can't see it until I see Mike coming at me, and Mark's front bumper. So I just drove through Mike on my brakes, and then the three of those guys spun out.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I started third, and James and JR they got in front of me. I wanted to get second, but James wanted to fight me for it, so I said whatever. I let him have it, and I they ran away, probably about a second and a half ahead of me, and I just wanted to drive as hard as I needed to keep third. I had Justin Morton behind me, and I knew he was going to try to save his stuff. Um, so we were just riding around, and James was really putting it to Jr. But Jr. didn't want to let him have it, and they ran away for a while, and then about halfway through the race, James fell off, so I went up past him. He gave me the spot, and then I caught up to Jr. Had about like lap 65 probably is when I caught him, and made the pass on him. I He fought me, but he just didn't have any tires left. It was probably the most worn I've ever seen JR's tires. Um, he just really used them up trying to defend the lead early on. So I took the lead with 27 to go and stretched it out. We ended up winning by almost 4 seconds. But the thing is when I came around in turn two, like I'm really thankful that you said something on the radio that there was a wreck out of turn two. I came around and there was all these cars sprawled everywhere. I did check up, and I went low and kind of gunned it and got away from it. But man, in my head for a split second, I was thinking like, oh, this is it. This is the thing that's gonna screw me out of this. But luckily we got past it. Um, would have been interesting if we would have gotten like a restart, but I was relatively confident in what I had underneath me. We ended up winning that, so man, my arms were sore after the full day of racing and everything, and not getting a break in that race. But um, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, my shoulders and arms were sore after like lap 8. So Uh, I wanted to break then, but as the race went on longer and longer, I was like, I hope we don't get a caution. Like, I know I can't challenge for the lead if I don't get a caution to at least catch you guys. Because back in the pack, like the three of you guys just pulled away, and we had to like, I had to pass. I was started 13th. There's no way I was running that race without a caution, or you guys all wrecking. So it would have been nice to have a caution, but I'd much rather just see it play out because I'm pretty terrible at restarts.
Yeah, so we'll touch base too on NEP. Grand National Series was at Twin Ring Motegi um, this week for 55 laps, and I don't know. Have you run on that track on the oval before?
No, never.
It's different. It's about a mile and a half, just slightly under, but it's like flat. It's really flat. So you go into turn one. It's pretty relatively fast. Turn one's pretty like sweeping, but then turn three and four is a lot tighter. It's kind of like it. It is, but it isn't. It's like Darlington in the fact that one end of the racetrack's a lot sharper than the other. That's about all they share. Um, but you got to really get it slowed down for turn three and four, because there's not that much banking. And we had a relatively clean race, three cautions. We had I started up in second actually, had a really good qualifying lap. Was in second for a while. We got a caution. I stayed out. And then on the next restart I dropped to third, and then we got another caution like lap 20 or 30 something, and I chose to stay out, and most of the fast guys pitted. I was hoping we were going to get another restart. Well, we didn't. So on the next restart, I held on as long as I could, but they ended up getting by me, and I dropped all the way to 12th because we never had another caution again, and I just didn't have any tires. So, um, yeah, that was unfortunate because I think we had enough speed to compete for a win there. But then we move on to the NEP Truck Series, which you, Austin, were involved in as well as me. So we ran this race just before the Daytona 24 hour. It actually started, it wasn't finished before the Daytona race started. So,
We watched the start of it with our respective teams in Western PA, and then like a half hour after the race started, we hopped over to doing the NEP race.
yes. So we were at Las Vegas this week for a night race, and that was uh, that was an interesting race because, from my team's perspective at least, we all had a strategy, and there was one caution that we had, and I can't remember when, but all four of our team trucks we stayed out, and I thought more people were going to stay out, but nobody did. And but it allowed us to have a set of tires up on everybody else. So we ran green flag for a while, and then we were going to pit for tires, but then we didn't get a caution until like two to go. Now I was settled into like I was in third, I believe it was, and I was all right. I was content with that. Um, but then we got that caution with two to go, so we pitted for tires, and we ended up having like what, two green white checkers, I think it was.
Yep, two.
And on the last one there, it was the leaders all wrecked. I was actually like back in seventh or eighth because of pitting for tires put me back a few spots, but trying to come through the field, and um, guys wrecked in front of us, and I went low, avoided it, and ended up in second place with my teammate Wyatt behind me. And the next guy on our team, though, was Jason Ricker. He ended up 14th. Or Ryan Salvatore actually ended up 13th. He was next. So, okay points day, I guess. Not the best for us, but I think we'll keep the points lead. What was that race like from your perspective, especially that last restart?
Race started. I think I started like ninth or 10th, maybe with the amount of people that didn't show up. I think I was supposed to start 14th, but I started 10th. I just took it easy on the first couple laps to save my tires, especially because what happened at Michigan, it seemed like everyone that saved their tires for the first 10 laps could really attack the rest of the race, and they were in a much better position. Especially after I saw Libby, I mean, he started like first or second or something, and he just dropped right to the back. Just to save his tires, and I asked him, I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Save my tires." Like it's just what you do. So, um, not to give away his secrets, but I'm sure it's pretty obvious he falls to the back and then he can just race through because he has talent. Um, so I just saved my stuff for a while. The first caution came out, and I was like, "You taking tires?" And he said, "No, just getting fuel," because we couldn't even make it on fuel. So it was a good good move on his part to do that. And I must have not clicked off the left sides before I got to my box or soon enough, because I know I clicked them off before I got to my box. Maybe pulled on to like the box part of pit road. So I took left sides. I didn't mean to, but I mean it's left sides. You barely use them anyways. So I took those, and then he and I were like raced up through the field. We caught that pack that you were in the middle of the race, and then he and I just kind of like raced through all of them. And then he was racing behind you, and I was behind him. And I looked one time, and he was like, "If you want it, bud, go for it." So I was like, "Okay, I think I can pass you, and then I'll go up and try help you pass Kenny." No offense, Kenny. Um, I passed you in like a lap or two, and then I tried to kind of hold you up a bit to at least like if Libby wanted it, we could at least try go draft up to the other people, but he was, I think at that point, he just said, "No, I'll just pit." So that's when he undercut, and I really wish he would have told me because I would have been in a lot better track position if I would have undercut when you guys did. Um, but that's okay. Rode around, and then green flag stop came out. You take 4 tires because you're wasting enough time as it is, and we needed fuel. So um, good move on your guys' part to undercut short pit. Really helped your guys out.
Well, we pitted when we had to. Um,
I don't think Libby had to. Libby purposely, because he had as much fuel as I did, he could have gone about 5 or 6 laps more.
yeah, I
But
uh,
he did undercut.
I pitted um, on the first caution for fuel, and so like I had to pit when I did, and same with Sal and Jason Ricker. They pitted together and they were right together, and I don't know if they like hit each other, but they were like, whoa, they were saying something on the radio like, whoa, sorry, and but they were okay. Um, and Wyatt, he had to pit actually before me even because he was up in front and he never pitted up until that green flag stopped. So he had to pit early. Um, and then he, so we all made our pits, and then, um, oh, so and then we made our pits, and then we ran for a while, and then got that caution. We pitted 2 laps to go or whatever, and I don't know if you noticed, but our teammate Wyatt Alexander, he was going to maybe run out of fuel, and one of our teammates, Jason, who was like a lap down at the time, he was actually pushing Wyatt under caution. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that, yeah. Somebody brought it up because he was like a second behind me under caution. So I was like, "Is there a minimum pace speed?"
Yeah, so we pushed him, and I think Wyatt would have been okay on fuel, but if we would have had another green light checker, I think he would have been in trouble. But yeah, so we all worked together there. I love my team how well they work together, and it's gotten us the points lead. So it's gonna be interesting going to like the road course and then the iRacing Super Speedway. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, we got that green white checkered, and it was just like we got to stop for tires because we need them. Like if I have a set, I might as well use it. So I stopped for two because that's all I could take. And I think I beat a couple different people off pit road, but I was starting on the bottom. You didn't want to be on the bottom on the restarts because you really wanted to be up top in turns 1 and 2, at least in the third line, because the bumps were either a lot smoother or they didn't exist up there. And that's something that I found by like lap 5 or 10 of the race, and everyone else found it like lap 30 because everyone else started running high, and you could cut down low to like the middle of the corner and then get a huge run down the backstretch. Whereas 3 and 4, you could just wrap the bottom. Um,
Yeah, I think that last or the first green light checker, I was right behind you, and I had nowhere to go. I had 4 tires. I was ready to go, and I thought about making it 3 wide down the backstretch, but I just didn't quite have the run.
I'll
But
let them have the bottom.
but I'm glad that we had that next green white checker because I wasn't going to make any progress. I was just locked in, and I ended up getting another restart on the top and gaining some spots.
Yeah, I was on the top then too. I didn't get the best restart because people like it was weird that I think Evan was in first. He didn't just mash the throttle; he kind of like eased into it, and so did everyone else. And I was just kind of waiting there for like a go. So I kind of messed that up. But yeah, huge wreck down the back. Multiple people wreck. I accidentally turned sail, and I felt so bad about it because I was looking at some dude who like tried to bust down the fence, and I was trying to go lower and lower and lower, and then I just barely turned sail onto the outside wall, and I felt so bad about it. And then
Uh,
going on, I almost wrecked Zany. Well, I didn't almost wreck Zany. I almost killed Zane because he was in a wreck too. But I checked up enough for his teammate to hit him. And then going on the front stretch, I passed John Peters, and I don't know who was in fourth at the time, but he decided he wasn't going to let me get fourth or pass him on the inside. So he dove down and then, like, just enough space to block me. So I went high, accidentally spun him out, and then he just kind of put me in the wall. But I got fourth, so fuck him.
yeah, yeah, Zane. I felt bad for Zane. He was battling. I felt bad for Zane. He was battling for the lead there at the end and just got caught up in a wreck. It was just Evan actually pushed up into the outside wall and then came down, and Zane was there, and they checked up, and Peters got into him, and that just turned everybody, and it just all hell broke loose there. I felt bad for Evan and felt bad for Zane. They really ran a good race.
It did, but we'll get to our guest point of the podcast. Our guest today, like I said, Steven Spees. You might recognize him as the guy who does really well on dirt and then is surprisingly good on pavement as well. He just won his first SK race a couple weeks ago. The number five, Steven Spees. Steven, how's it going?
Very well. I think we can take that SK win off the boards. We know that wasn't due to me. That was Lowell's. I sent a thank you to Lowell for messing up the fuel on that one, and then my error early on to spin early and be at the back after I had to pit did that.
That was pure genius on your part. We'll chalk it up to geniusness on that one.
I'll take it where I can get it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on with us, Steven, and I guess we'll get right into it. Steven, I I met you through Stars on Dirt, I believe. It was a league that John Hine was running in with like dirt late models, and you were just kind of one of the guys in that league with him that I kind of flocked to. John kind of took me under his wing so I could get a little bit better at the dirt stuff, and you were kind of seemed to be one of his friends in there, and is that like has John like been a strong connection to you on the in the iRacing side?
Yeah, for sure. So whenever I kind of joined, whenever or a little bit before Dirt came out, whenever Dirt was announced, is whenever I joined up, and just like most people, right, you just run officials and those kind of things, and then started discovering leagues. And got into one league and met some people and got along well and joined in some other leagues, and so ultimately ended up with the kind of that whole Stars on Dirt group, kind of running with the team there, and John was part of that too. So yeah, we ran, gosh, for the last 2 or 3 years, I think we've run together in various leagues and whatnot.
Yeah, how long have you had iRacing?
I think that I started in December of 2016, I think is what it was. I don't remember, when did Dirt come out, 2017 or 18? But I think I got it in like December, and then Dirt was announced the next April. And then so I just kind of hung around until I could start racing dirt. So how I got to it is I had been doing real racing for about, I think about 4 years, and then just kind of had it with that. Was tired, and I'm a horrible mechanic, and was ready to move on and spend more time with the family. And So sold all my stuff and decided I still wanted to do something. So had discovered iRacing. You guys have probably run across Dylan and Michael Rafferty somewhere along iRacing, but I did real racing with them, and Dylan's was pretty good at iRacing and had heard about it, so talked to him about it and decided, well, I'll buy a wheel and whatnot and give it a go. And it works pretty well for me just staying in the iRacing. Like I said, I'm not much of a mechanic and a fabricator, but I enjoy driving and it keeps me home, so it's good for me.
That's pretty neat. What got you into racing? So like being a racing fan, was it your parents or going to watch it or what was that like?
Yeah, growing up, whenever I was a kid, pretty much every either Friday or Saturday, my dad, my brother, and I, my dad drug us to the local dirt tracks. So I think I was born long ago, but in September, and I believe April of the next year was my first attendance at a dirt race, if I remember correctly. What my parents tell me, I don't really recall exactly. But yeah, we pretty much every weekend spent a night at the track, and my dad had some friends that raced, and so we were just around it all the time. My dad did a lot of fabrication. He's actually, his career was construction and sheet metal work, so he would do some fabrication on some guys' cars, and he built oil pans for a lot of the dirt track guys around our area. So we were tagging along with him on weekends whenever he was doing little side gigs and getting to go sit in race cars as little kids and going to the pits afterward and talking to the people he knew. So we were just always around it.
Where was your home track at this time?
Whenever I first started going, which would have been, let's see, my earliest memories are the late 70s and early 80s, we spent a lot of times at Riverside Stadium here in Kansas City, which is no longer in existence. Somewhere along the way, we changed over to Lakeside Speedway, which still exists, but it's changed locations since I was a kid. So we still go out there and watch the dirt. We also have I-70 Speedway here locally, which is just getting ready to reopen after a long absence. But that's a track that's gone from pavement to dirt to pavement to dirt, and it's closed for a while now, going back to dirt again. So there's no shortage of dirt tracks. I raced here at a little track called Valley Speedway, and there's another one called Central Missouri Speedway that's about 30 minutes from my house. Been all over. There's a Lucas Oil Speedway in Wheatland, Missouri, is about 2 hours from where I live, and we go down there occasionally and watch because it's just a beautiful place.
Now, when you were racing, was there did you how did you kind of like make up a schedule of like going to different tracks for different special events, or kind of make it up as you go along based on you know what the status of yourselves of your team is, or how do you kind of manage that?
Yeah, so it was kind of somewhat club based, really. So what I raced was the Mod Lights, which think of like the look of the dirt UMPs on iRacing. If people aren't familiar with dirt racing in general, but it's about 5/8 scale of those cars. Like I said, body styles either look like the UMPs or some of the body styles look like the Northeast modifieds, but it's about a 10-foot long car that runs on sport bike motors. So mine was a Suzuki 1000 cc motor, about 1,300 pounds with driver, I believe, is what our weight was. So we really pretty much had a club, and the guy that was the president of the club worked with the various tracks around to try to get dates. So whenever I joined in, they had gotten on the weekly schedule at the Valley Speedway here in Kansas City. So it's probably the closest track to me. So it worked out really well. They had a few dates at other regional tracks, but I really didn't have to travel. The guys running the club had traveled for years and years and years all over because they didn't have kind of a home track. They just negotiated with different promoters and got in and went and raced wherever they could. But the mod lights really have just kind of started to take off. I think maybe the last 5 to 10 years, a little bit more, and more tracks have them. So whenever I was there, though, it was really just one track. I think we had a couple dates at two other regional tracks. So my traveling was limited, which was good, but also it was kind of fun to go different places, and I didn't get much of a chance to do that.
How did you get into mod lights, and how old were you when you got into and back out of it?
Yeah, so, Mud Light started out as dwarf cars, and again, so if we go back to that, connection that I mentioned earlier with the Rafferty family, so my dad, was best friends with Dylan and Michael's grandfather for, way back into the '60s, '50s even maybe, so their Dylan and Michael's dad is about 10 years older than me, but he's got a younger brother who's just a few years older than me. So, I would go with my dad and my brother and we'd go over and hang out at the Rafferty's house because my dad and their grandfather would be working on cars or doing whatever. So I just kind of grew up with all of those guys. And so the friend that is close to my age, his name's Jeff, started getting into dwarf cars, long ago and always tried to kind of pull us into it. But I was going to school and moving around the country a little bit, and finally was back here. And then I didn't want to travel whenever they were kind of trying to drag us into it. Once they got the home track here at Valley Speedway, they kind of snickered me into it. Right? They had an older dwarf car and said, "Hey, come just show up and drive," which of course led me to spend a bunch of money and get my own the next season. So I was probably 36, 37, somewhere in there by the time I actually got to race. It's something I always wanted to do. But like I said, life kind of just happens and I had first child whenever we were 25 and moved to Chicago and then moved to Florida and then moved back here to Kansas City and things kind of got settled and finally had the means to do it in my late 30s. And I think I raced the first year in the car that they supplied me, and then I think I did 3 more, in my own car, and, it was a blast, but with the age of my kids at the time and everything, it was just time to sell out and be home. My son was a little bit young to really be in the pits, because obviously I'm working on the car and trying to keep everything going. I couldn't really keep an eye on him, so couldn't have him back there unless I had somebody else to watch him while I was there, and my daughter couldn't possibly care any less about racing and me being out there. So she wasn't really interested in coming and watching. So it was just time to let it go, and then just along with, the things that happen when you're in a club atmosphere and drama. I mean, you see what happens in leagues on iRacing with people wanting to be dramatic and, scale that up a bit when it's real life.
So what year would that have been about when you kind of retired?
I think it was probably about 2014, somewhere in that range. It all goes so fast at my age, I can't keep track of the years, but it was probably 6 years ago that I got out of it, 6 to 7 years ago.
So then a few years later, you get into iRacing, and so now I assume you were mostly interested in like the dirt side when you first got in, and then did you kind of like transition a little bit more, kind of biting off a little bit more of the pavement stuff, kind of as you've gotten more proficient?
Well, really, I probably did a lot of pavement well before before iRacing probably existed. I played the old Papyrus games and all of those things. I've done video games and tried to find different sim racing things for a long time. I played the Rat Bag World of Outlaw Sprint Cars was, one of the best things that ever came along. I had that on PC as well as PlayStation 2 and played that quite a bit. But there just wasn't a lot of dirt offering. So, I spent a lot of years doing various pavement type racing on console as well as PC. I go back to whenever the first Gran Turismo came out on the original PlayStation. That was just amazing to me that we had something so awesome and so great for racing. Even, road pavement doesn't matter. I just like racing in general.
So then, going back to so the Papyrus games and some of the NASCAR games, were you a fan of NASCAR, or is it just another avenue to play like a racing game? Because back then, PlayStation 2 era, those racing games were really good.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I've never really been a huge NASCAR fan. I followed it again. It's racing, and I enjoy racing. So I kind of followed it from afar. My dad wanted nothing to do with pavement. Whenever they paved our dirt tracks around here locally, and it was about the end of the world, he kept threatening to go out every week with a big bucket of dirt to throw on before the races every week. So, we never had NASCAR on TV or followed it at all, really. But Clint Boyer raced here at our local dirt tracks. And, so I saw Clint coming up through the ranks just, locally and just beating everybody just ridiculously fast. Kind of looked like, Kyle Larson did last night in the late models against guys. It just, he was in a whole nother class. So you knew if he got a chance, he was going somewhere. So once he got to NASCAR, I really started following a little bit closer. Before that, I was always a Kenny Schrader fan because, again, that's a guy I saw racing anything and everything, and he's from the wrong side of the state, but still here from Missouri. So I've always watched it just a little bit, but I've never really been a huge fan. It was just an avenue for racing for me.
Has there been a racing series in general that you've followed more religiously?
Really, there hasn't been. I've really followed just kind of the local and, some of the regional dirt modified stuff fairly closely from time to time, but I was always more of just a local guy than anything. Like I said, if we were home on the weekend as I got a little older, I'd have NASCAR on, but I really rarely sat down to really closely watch it. I've been out to the Kansas Speedway and been to the races a couple of times there, and it's an interesting event. But as far as actual racing goes, I don't find it to be that exciting of a product. So it just never really grabbed me to get really in depth in it.
I got you. Yeah, mostly just a background noise kind of thing, so you don't seem as I don't know, sort of distant away from the world, sort of just to keep you company, I guess, while you're doing stuff around the house.
Pretty much, and like I said, I'd like to check in always like to check in and see how Boyer was doing because that was kind of fun having somebody that you kinda felt you had, some sort of a relationship with, right? Obviously, I never knew the guy or anything like that, never talked to him, but, saw him for years before he made it anywhere, so that was always fun.
So you're on iRacing. How'd you find BRL? Was that knowing John Hine, and then he obviously kind of said like, "Hey, we're gonna do this new dirt street stock series." Is that what got you into it?
That is exactly it. So we were racing the Stars on Dirt stuff, and I picked up a couple of dirt leagues here and there also. And John kept saying, "Hey, you should come. I know you don't run much pavement, but you should come check this BRL out. It's a fun group." And I was kept saying, "No, it's pavement. It's on Saturday night. Not really interested." And then he finally, got somehow got Lowell to put the dirt stuff together on Friday nights. So I said, "All right, you got dirt. I'll come give it a try." And it's been a good time. It's a good group, clean group of racing. So I'm having quite a bit of fun. It's maybe a little bit of a challenge to do it on Fridays and Saturdays. But with the whole COVID situation this last year, obviously I've been pretty regular at it.
Yeah, and I have a lot of
Yes.
respect for you to come and race with us on Saturdays as well. I know that's not, at least historically been your element, but I can definitely tell you're progressing and getting better the longer you do it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like anything else, right? Practice improves you, but I don't put a lick of practice in it. The only time, honestly, that I run pavement oval stuff is the practice sessions right before we start that. If I've got time and I'm available, and it's fun. I've felt like I've been somewhat successful given the effort that I've put in. Obviously, I can't keep up with you, Kenny, with JR, and you guys that are fast and do more of it and probably just have a little bit more talent for it. But, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing there.
Yeah, I think a lot of the success too is, I mean, part of that too is it's an oval, so there's only four corners and really only two, and most of the tracks are kind of similar. Is you kind of just ease the car into the corner, set it on the bottom, and just don't light your stuff up. And I know you being, patient and knowing how to be successful on that and save your tires. I mean, you just blow the doors off of everybody that uses their stuff up, and you seem to always be at least in the top 8 or top 10 at the end of them. and not even just the Grand National cars too. You're pretty good in the SK and tour mods as well.
Yeah, I really like that, it's changed to the tour mod. I didn't ever feel good in that SK. It just I don't know if I didn't quite drive it hard enough or what the deal was, but, about 30 laps into a 100-lap race, I just kind of felt bored and lost concentration usually, and I was inconsistent, and I just never really got the hang of those. The tour mod, I feel like I have to drive a little bit, so it keeps me a little bit more engaged.
Yeah, I've been having a blast in those tour mods. Ran a league last summer in those cars, and thing is like they have. It's weird because they have a lot of power, but they still have a lot of downforce, so you can still drive the car pretty darn hard. You do have to manage the throttle, but which is kind of like it's kind of both elements. You got the drive hard element of the SK paired with the power element of some of the other cars. Um, I've been having a blast in them.
Yeah, like I said, so far so good for me. It's nice having all that tire. I guess I've only done one race in them so far. Other than that, I think we may have done a BRL practice race last season or something. But I'm guessing we have to manage the tires a bit, but it didn't really feel like I had to do too much tire management. So it was nice just to be able to go race and not kind of underdrive the car, which like we have to do in those Grand Nationals.
Yeah, the SKs they seem tight and they just seem to like push all the time. And it wasn't until the most recent update that they finally like got loose on throttle or even come out of that corner, and that was still like very minimal due to the the low amount of power they had coupled with all the downforce on the rear end. So these cars I think are a lot more suited for someone who can manage the throttle.
Yep, for sure, for sure. Which and that's a lot of the dirt secret. I know you guys aren't huge dirt people. Austin, I'm surprised that you even allow us to talk about dirt around here. You don't seem like much of a fan, but it's all about throttle control. The street stock's a little bit, that we drive in BRL, but all the other cars. I wish that the midgets would pick up. I know it's probably a challenge for a lot of the guys in BRL that don't run a lot of dirt that have kind of come over and started playing in the street stock. But that midget is probably one of my favorite cars on the service.
It's really weird because you have to throw it into the corner, but it doesn't have the downforce to like stop you. So if you do something wrong, especially I forget where we were like 2 weeks ago or something, but if you messed up, you were gonna hit the wall in turns one and two.
Yeah, the thing about those cars and the bigger non-wing sprint cars as well, and to a lesser extent, the wing sprints, you can't let up on the throttle. If you think you missed something, you almost just have to keep your foot in it to get it to turn more, which is kind of counterintuitive because as soon as you let off the throttle, the thing just pushes straight up to the wall, right? You got to keep that right rear churning and turning you around. And, I think that is probably where a lot of the guys struggle moving from pavement over to dirt is you're driving it a lot more with your right foot than you are the wheel. And especially on iRacing where you don't have the feel of the car, I think it's a hard thing to retrain your brain to catch those visual cues, and maybe some in your wheel depending on what equipment you have to kind of predict what the car is doing and get that quote unquote feel of it.
Yeah, the weirdest thing for me was in John High would always say like, "Well, look for the moisture," and it's like, all right, well, the track's two different colors. I don't know which one is the good one, but I guess I'll just throw it in the corner, and if I wreck, I chose wrong.
I
So
guess that's one approach.
well, because it would always change and it moves as the race goes on. And, usually it goes up high, but then if you're up high for so long, like the bottom becomes fast again. I don't understand it.
Then there's those rare
Yeah,
occasions
you
where
just
there's
have to
actually
keep trying, and I always have my crew chief or spotter calling out my lap times, so I'll try to move my line a little bit up, a little bit down, high, low if I've got a gap behind me, and just listen to those lap times, and if it wasn't as good, go back to where I was.
then there's actually at least in traffic sometimes there's those rare occasions where there's some speed in the slick even.
Yeah, if you get a really burned off track and you've got good throttle control, yep, for sure. You can just kind of roll it Think of it like the Grand National car or something at that point. You're letting up early, rolling through the corner, and easing back on as you're getting back on throttle.
And part of that too is, I mean, you have to drive it with your right foot. But what I've seen a lot of the really good guys like you do, and Kenny's done it pretty good to some extent as well, is you know how much throttle to put down and when, depending on how much the car wants to step out, and that is by far the hardest thing about dirt racing.
Yeah, if I jump in and just kind of ride along with other people, or you can even see it a lot of times. Guys right in the middle in the black slick stuff, just mashing the throttle, and the car just kicks it right out from under them. It's not horrible in the street stocks, but it definitely will still over rotate on you if you get too aggressive on the throttle and you're in the wrong spot on the track. So again, it's learning those visual cues. My son's not too into racing, but on the occasion he'll come and get in my rig and try to run a few laps, and I'll look over his shoulder, and like I can just tell visually that it's over rotating way before he realizes it. And I imagine if he was in a real car, he would feel that coming out from under him and over rotating. So it's for me, I think it's just lots of years of video games and that eye-hand coordination, and recognizing what's going on early enough that I can manage it.
Some of that too is also like when you ride right up against the wall in iRacing, and especially if you don't have VR, maybe you only have a single monitor versus triples, you kind of can't tell where the wall is behind you. So your sense of distance is really, really poor. And I usually go up and smack the wall.
Yep, for sure. I am in VR. I actually, for some reason, my regular headset mic wasn't working, so I had to put my VR on for this today, which is fine. I'm used to wearing it a lot. But what I do is whenever if you're running right up on the wall, you don't want to get the car too sideways. And since I am in VR, I can kind of turn my head to the right, and I'm kind of looking almost at the wall or kind of at the cushion, and for some reason, whenever I look over there, it helps me judge how close I am. It's hard to explain, but it works. The downside of that is my eyes aren't down the track, so if something goes wrong in front of me, I may not catch it soon enough. But you know, it just takes a lot of laps to understand the size of each of those cars, and how to get them up there close to the wall without smacking into it. And I'm not great at it, but I've got it figured out for the most part.
That's the thing with that's the thing with those street stocks too is the like just in general you want to try to keep them as straight as possible because they're such a momentum car, and that's something I've been trying to get better at. I think I've gotten better, but I still have a lot of room for improvement in the and then like when you guys run the very high line, I always seem to have to be like half a lane down from where the really fast guys are because I just every time I try I just always end up knocking the fence down.
Yeah, that's pretty standard. So, Kenny, are you still going to be running the BRL dirt? I saw that you've kind of been running some truck series on Friday nights.
Yeah, I think I'll be like in and out of it for a little while. That this particular week, I missed it for the Daytona 24, and I think I missed it from last week. I can't remember for.
Yeah, last week
Oh
too,
yeah,
we
the
we had
NEP
truck.
trucks. Yeah, but that's only a 6 race season, so I'll probably be doing the trucks up until that's done. But then I should be back to running BRL at least the majority of the weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
and,
mean,
and I'm guessing that you're a little like me on the pavement side, that you're probably not going in and putting a bunch of practice laps or anything in. You're kind of showing up and doing this dirt thing, right?
Mostly yeah. Like BRL, I just practice for the warm up session, and that's about it. Same with the dirt as well. I go in and really the warm up session is kind of your best practice session, anyways, because you're seeing your competition. You can watch. I watch replays in that session all the time. So guys like you, Bobby Rafferty, Brandon Proudfoot, I'm watching them what they're doing to get some kind of cues. Um, and then like the track gets worn down as we go through, which helps me out too.
Yeah, and then kind of going back to running that high line. And Brandon's really, really good at this. I hit it probably 70% of the time, but if you roll in, and just from catching some of your streams, Kenny, sometimes I like to go back and watch your streams of the race just to kind of see what happened and versus what I saw in my own view. If you can keep the car somewhat straight, and it's almost like you're hitting the cushion with your right front tire, it just kind of sits on that cushion, and then you can throttle all the way around. So I tend to turn in to it too much and hit it with the back, where if you get in and see Brandon, more hits it with the front tire and can get back on the throttle really fast. And, here's the secret on dirt. Hopefully nobody listens to this, but if you can keep your right rear on the cushion coming off the corner, it doesn't matter what car it is, you're gonna gain a tenth or two, versus being down off the cushion.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, with how straight Brandon drives, like, it's almost like to the point where if I'm holding the wheel straight, I think I'm gonna just go up and smash into the wall. It's like you have to turn, like, almost too late. And then you
Yeah.
have to not turn too much as well.
If you hit it right, it just carries the car around and you don't have to put much wheel into it. Like I said, it's hard to find, but you know, eh, take a replay, save it, and go back and watch Brandon whenever we're on one of those tracks that's running right up around the wall on the cushion, and you'll probably be able to kind of see it visually, and then you can try to do it on your own. Like I said, if you hit it right, it's just a completely different feel around the corner, and that's where the speed is.
Usually I can just I don't know if it's luck or just I'm more comfortable with it, but I'll almost try to run the top pretty much anywhere we go, and I don't know why. But it's like, yeah, it kind of just like two, I feel like you have to get on the brakes because if you go in there like you're gonna hit it on the bottom, you will most certainly bust down the fence and flatten the car out against it, and then you are not going fast at all because your rear end, your front end should be pointed more towards the center or at least straight. But in this case, like you're up against the wall facing the wrong direction.
Yes, clearly not where you want to be.
So,
But yeah, we'll be back to filling. I'll be back to filling the field. Kenny will be back to running up front
yeah.
in like 3 or 4 weeks or something.
Yeah, I fight for podiums. That seems to be all I'm good for in there, but I like to see if I can grab a third.
So like I said, it's kind of like me running the pavement, right? I don't know if I can get up to a podium. There's probably some tracks where I'll hit it right and I'll get a good feel where I can probably run up. I think with the SKs once or twice, I was able to kind of match JR. I'm just not consistent enough on it. But I think that's kind of where you're at on the dirt, Kenny. And remember back in the Stars on Dirt, you were progressively getting better, and it's just like anything else. It's just laps.
Yep, and Volusia's the track that I kind of circle every season. That seems to be the one I'm best at. My one win in the straight stocks is at Knoxville, but um, Volusia's seems to be my favorite track, and I can keep up with the leaders. I like the different lines you can take, and it's kind of a rhythm track, being two totally different ends on each track, or totally different corners on each end of the track. Seems to help me.
Yeah, I think I was doing really good at Volusia one of the last times we were there at BRL. I think I felt like I had something for Bobby and or Brandon, but I don't remember what happened. But yeah, I tend to run pretty well there.
I think that was that the one where at the beginning of the race you and Chris Davis got kind of locked up together and you couldn't get off each other and you blasted the outside wall off of turn 4. I know. I thought that was
Yeah,
you and you
I think
flipped over
yep.
and stuff.
Yeah, I believe Chris got into my right rear and turned me out into the wall coming off of turn 4. I think you're right. Thanks for bringing back good memories.
So
Well, look, it was a good memory because you came back through the field.
Yeah, I remember I was driving pretty angry. I still try to keep my wits about myself. It's pretend racing. I don't get too bent out of shape, but that one got me,
It's the
and I
principle
would
of it
didn't.
all.
Yeah, I wasn't giving people much room. I was getting back up there.
Yeah, I could kind of tell you were mad because I was mid pack and I was like, "Oh, here's Steven. He'll probably be all right." And nope, he's in a hurry to get back to the front.
Yeah, I generally I don't get upset at stuff on iRacing, but yeah, that one got me. And let's call Chris out a little bit. He's been over aggressive, and I think that we all got an email from the pavement night that shows that recently.
Yeah, he
He throws a lot of sliders whenever he gets the chance, and it's kind of annoying. And sometimes he's like gonna come up in your lane even if he's not clear.
yeah, I mean, I think
Yep.
he knows he's taking the chance though, and he's comfortable with it, but sometimes you have to pay for the consequences for it. Sometimes
Yep.
it helps him out though. Sometimes it's beneficial for him.
Yep. I don't know if Chris will ever catch this or not. He seems like a good guy. I don't have any problems with him. But I'm going to tell you, Chris, if you do hear this, I don't give you an inch of room just because you've built a way of racing. So that's what we do.
A reputation, yeah.
Yeah, and that wreck too. That I think I made a Twitch clip of that too, because I was like 2 cars behind that, and that would just look like such a violent accident. And I had to kind of like snake through it. I almost clobbered one of you two guys, and I was able to get through it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to react when you're in the midst of these incidents happening. But I really feel like if on that particular one, all he had to do was let out of the throttle. Whenever I went back and looked at the replay, he just kept his foot in it the whole time, so I could never turn off of his corner, which is what hooked me. And that's what irritated me is that I think it was really avoidable. Contact happens, we crash, whatever. There's no money involved. It's not that big of a deal to me. But when it can be avoided and people just don't, that burns me.
Yeah, and that was pretty early in the race too. And like, maybe you could have only brushed the wall instead of absolutely knocking it down, because you guys like
Yep.
hit it really hard.
Yeah, I think I had to quick repair on that one if I remember right.
I would assume so. You're lucky that you landed on your wheels, or else you would have had to tow.
Yep, which I've been there a couple of times too, of course. I'm sure we all have though. And I don't know if you guys caught the Friday night BRL. I was watching it kind of well, you would have been racing, I'm sure, at that point in the 24. I was flipping back between the 24 on the Twitch streams and the BRL, and a newer guy, I think it's Billy
Billy Northcutt,
Northcutt.
yeah.
Yeah, he's been really fast, but he was running the high line there at Knoxville and giving Brandon everything that he had. It was a good race, and he just climbed that wall and turtled himself. I felt so bad for the guy.
Dang. Well, it's good to have some newfound competition with the new guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's great.
you prefer it was yourself going up there to challenge Brandon, but like, hey, if there's another guy up there that can at least take him on head to head, I'm all for it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's let's be honest, Brandon's on another level than the rest of us. I don't I caught just the very, very end of one of those Jim Beaver off-road truck things that they had this week. And Brandon, I guess I didn't see the beginning of it, but I guess he had to go to the back of the pack for something. And, with 2 laps to go, he's racing for the lead. I mean, that guy just whatever it is just better at this than most of us.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like Bobby Rafferty being a large fish in a absolute puddle, as far as I'm concerned. No offense to, to the people in BRL, but Brandon is an even larger fish in that very small puddle. So it was nice to
Yes.
see he could at least be challenged.
Yes, the dirt pro versus the field we're not in the same class, but
I
that's
almost
okay,
wish
it's
I almost wish Tyler
yeah.
would come back to challenge him or something. I just like to see who comes out on top.
Well, Tyler would because 'cause he'd crash him.
Well, yeah, but
Would be
I
interesting to
mean,
see him
I
battle out.
didn't mind racing with that guy, but he was so aggressive and just crashed people all the time. That's not what BRL is, if that's what you wanna do is be in a league that runs over people and roughs people up, BRL just isn't the place for you, but that's why I do like it is because it just isn't tolerated.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, a lot of the people, including myself and you guys in BRL, have kind of built the mentality of it's not like I'm gonna do everything I can to get past this guy, but it's like you have to kind of think of like how to take care of the guy in front of you as you pass him. It's kind of a different mentality. Like there was races before on the pavement side where I got second place or something, and I got interviewed, and they're like, "Oh, why didn't you laid a bumper to him?" And I was just like, "That's just not what we do at BRL." If it was like one of those money races, you've done plenty of them on dirt, Steven. Like, of course I'm gonna move him out of the way, but it's not. That's not what BRL is, so I'm going to try to get past him cleanly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've only been hit by 2 people in BRL. One of them's Chris and the other one is Donnie, and Donnie just doored me a couple times, but Chris has, like, tap, 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 tap.
Well, let's not forget Austin. I think I upset you one night on the pavement side. I moved you unintentionally.
Yeah, but I mean, like, did you know you were gonna move me? No. So,
Nope.
like, you were
No, I
just
didn't.
driving in there trying to pass, like, that's different.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah.
contact does happen still occasionally. I know I've gotten into JR a couple times. He actually got into me last night after I passed him, and I know that was unintentional as well. So it happens because you're on a short track. The racing's so close, but
I mean,
you
you're
can
racing
usually tell.
hard. It's not like he intended to get into you, and it's not like Steven intended to door me. It's just shit happens.
Yep.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. That was I caught most of that race last night. I was sitting on the couch and I had the Lucas Oil Dirt race on my TV and brought up the BRL stuff on my PC. So I was like multiple race watching, and that was an interesting race last night. I saw when Jr. I forget who was racing with up front there,
James.
but yeah, with James. And I saw Kenny there in third, and I was like, Kenny's saving his stuff, and it just felt like they were burning it up, and for sure they were. So good job to you to be patient and not try to chase it down.
Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty proud of that win actually, because it doesn't happen often where you drive up and you pass JR cleanly and you just run away from him. And like I can probably count on two hands, maybe even one hand, of how many times I've been able to do that.
No,
So
for sure, for sure. Were cautions turned off or something? That was crazy when that caution happened. I mean, it should have been a caution last night.
We were gonna get to that later. I meant to speak about it earlier, but yeah. So I think we believe the Nancy Drew crew, as it were, in TeamSpeak last night, investigating the lineup because that was pretty messed up. Um, there were no cautions and there was no lucky dog because I remember looking at the info and cautions. It wasn't listed. Neither was the lucky dog. So I'm pretty sure that's why we didn't have one because Kurt Smith spun out and smacked the wall hard enough that he needed to go get his fast repair because I remember seeing him pitting, and I was like, "There's no caution. I hope everything's all right with Kurt, like real life wise. Hopefully, he doesn't have to get up and go do something out of the ordinary." But according to Justin Prince last night, he like spun out and had to go get his fast repair. So kind of surprised it didn't cause a caution, especially when Mark Herzog was like 45 degrees out of shape, and we've had cautions for less than 45 degrees out of shape, and then he was facing the exact wrong way as Kenny went by.
Yeah, that was it. It had to be. I mean, we're Sherlock Holmes crew, like you said, over here, but there's no way cautions were on. If so, iRacing had a really big problem. They messed
Yeah.
something up when they were trying to fix the Daytona servers.
yeah, it
And I
was.
know it's not broke because Kenny and Brian did their snowball derbies like a month or two ago, and like Kenny's had at least 20 cautions
Oh
for less
yeah,
than 45 degrees out of shape.
yeah. It definitely wasn't a problem with the track. Sometimes when a guy will spin to the grass at Five Flags, it'll not throw a caution. But yeah, there should have been a caution there. They were right in the middle of the track. In the lineup, I don't know if you noticed this too, Steven, but the lineup was messed up too. I think we were lined up by I rating. So JR ended up on pole.
No, I didn't catch it until you were probably 15 or 20 laps in, so I missed that part. But yeah, something just clearly wasn't right. Maybe we need to send Lowell to get a checkup or something.
I guess
I mean, he's human. He makes mistakes. Everybody does. But
yeah, we'd like to give him 1 week of grace. Let's just hope that next
yeah,
week is back to
one
normal.
week per season, he gets a pass.
Yeah, it's all right. Like I said, from my perspective, championships, whatever, it's fun to be in that mix and race for it. But yeah, we're not racing for prizes and money. It's to me, it's just been a good fun kind of social interaction thing to do on Friday and Saturday nights.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like the lineup was messed up, and the caution thing was messed up. But like nobody keyed up the mic and was like, "Oh, this is BS. This sucks. This is stupid." There, everybody was just like, "Oh,
Let's
okay."
remember though, Kenny, that we can't because if you do, you get a penalty.
Well, true. I mean, maybe
Deservedly so.
I don't know. I really do think though that most people were just like, okay, you know. which is
No, I
Yeah,
yeah,
they were
I
all
agree
like,
with
"It's gonna
that.
be Kenny and JR anyway. It doesn't matter where we start."
No, and I mean, and to be honest, you look at the I rating, that's about how everybody normally finishes with a couple of exceptions. I think my I rating is exceptionally low for what it is because I cracked 2K IR, I just quit. I retired from officials. Never doing that again. But then there were some people, like I know Chris is usually a lot higher than his I rating, and so was Kurt for that matter. He has really good runs too. So it was just, I mean, at the front, yeah, one, two, three, four. That's pretty much how they were going to finish.
I would like to transition, still in the iRacing respect, but so you're progressing in pavement racing, but you've gotten more into road racing lately. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so, like I mentioned earlier, I've been doing simulated racing of different sorts as long as I've had some sort of a console or a PC. And most of the games that were available were road racing games. So that's really probably where I started. Other than whenever I was little, I had my all my Hot Wheels, and I took like an erector set and made like a dirt oval on my bedroom floor, and would have like heat races and features, and I had like a whole roster. But other than that, all that I had available to me really was road racing. So I've always enjoyed it. I've always liked sports cars. And so my older brother, who's a mechanical engineer by training and trade, and worked at ProCharger, who made superchargers, for automotive and marine applications, and was a design engineer and all of those things. He's always been into going fast in straight lines. He's was into drag racing and street racing and all that fun stuff. But I always was interested in, Porsches. So I would have been 11 or 12 years old, the Porsche 959 came out, first major supercar, 200 miles an hour, 3.6 seconds or whatever, 0 to 60 time. It was just this unreal machine. And I just kind of started clinging to that and always just loved Porsches. So anytime that I had the opportunity, I wanted to race one. So I did, on iRacing, I'll jump in the Mazda and the Skip Barber cars pretty often still if I'm just looking for something different to do. I'm decent at it. I'm never super fast, but John Hine and I have started doing the VRS endurance stuff, this last season on Sundays just for something different. It's time to hang out. We're not worried about how good we're doing or not. We're just having a good time. So I feel like I'm improving there because I'm doing it more, but I really enjoy that type of racing.
Yeah, to me it's kind of nice because oval racing is nice because of the level of competition, how close you are with everybody. It's intense, but then road racing is kind of nice because of the opposite, where it's like mostly it's you versus the track with some single car battles usually, and it to me I get the most like rewarding feeling when like you have a track and a car and you like memorize have you've officially memorized the track and like you know every corner. That's where I don't know, get my gratitude from, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You putting the time in, and it's just a different experience. And like I was saying earlier, also 100 laps on a pavement oval, I kind of lose concentration. I get a bit bored. Where if you're doing road racing, right, it's finding those tenths on every corner, and they're all different corners, and how you set up for them, and it's just a whole different challenge. And at the same time, it's a bit disappointing because so I went ahead and signed up for the VRS service, and have been using some of their telemetry stuff, and I can see exactly what I'm not doing right versus the really fast people, and I cannot change. I can't fix it. So I feel a little bad about myself sometimes.
Yeah, give yourself some time.
Yeah, I mean, it's more practice, and like I said, I mean, like, I think I've gotten a lot better at dirt, and I never practice for dirt. Like, unless John Hine put up a session for like he used to put up for practicing, I'd probably go in and do 10 laps and then quit because I got bored, right? But like, you just show up and just put in laps, and you'll get better. And same for the pavement. I've gotten a lot better, and I don't practice. I just kind of show up for the warm ups, and you naturally do it and get better. And you have like 20 minutes of practice, and then the race lasts like an hour, so you get better.
Yeah, I think where I struggle, and it's probably the same on some of the pavement oval, is I tend to brake a little early. I don't do good on iRacing, kinda on the trail braking, I guess it is how I would say it. I the back end just wants to come around on me, and I can't quite figure that piece out yet. So I'm open for tips.
I mean, basically, and most of what I've learned about trail braking is playing like Forza Motorsport, like 5, 6, 7, and then the F1 games. And those I'll like leave the line on because I mean it's pretty arcadey. Sometimes you can turn it off to get more sim, and I'll do that. But when you're learning the track and just learning techniques, the line is really helpful because it'll force you to bleed off the brake if you're really paying attention to what the car is doing and what the line says. It goes from red to yellow to green, and that yellow point and just before the apex is really where your trail brake and where you're getting off the brake just to kind of set the car and then get ready to plant the throttle on exit. And that's really how I learned to trail brake, and that's all there is to it. Is just the closer you get to the apex, the less brake you need.
Yeah, I tend to I think I like I said, I tend to break 50 feet, 50 yards, whatever it is, early, and I try to go deeper and break hard right at the onset and then release, and I can't get it right. I think I need the feel of the car. I sometimes I feel like I'd be faster in a real car than I am on the games.
Oh, definitely, because the real car is gonna, if it doesn't handle how you think it will, you'll be able to feel it to know that what you're doing is wrong. But in the sim, you only have like the pedal input, and then the wheel is probably the only thing giving you feedback. I know, like my pedals, like the Club Sport V3s, they'll vibrate sometimes, but only if I'm like spinning my tires or locking up, and that's it. So
Yep.
you can't feel the weight transfer or feel what the car is doing to let you know, like I should be off the brakes or I'm still braking too hard.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that you can't simulate in iRacing that that you have in a real car is your brain telling you you're doing something really stupid, and then trying to overcome that. Whenever I was doing the real racing, you're going 80, almost 90 miles an hour on a little third mile dirt track. At the end of the straightaway, and you just have to pitch that car in there, and your brain's like, "What are you doing, dummy? This thing's not going to turn for you." And getting that comfort level and just the repetition of it. I wish that people could understand that because it'd keep a lot of people from overdriving all kinds of corners on iRacing.
And you just can't feel the G's because in a road car, like if you brake coming up to a red light, you know how much you're decelerating because you can feel it. Either
Yep.
you have to tense up against the steering wheel or you can feel it in your core. Whereas on iRacing, it's like, man, I hope I'm slowing down at all because I'm pressing the brake pedal, but you have nothing to tell you, visually you're slowing down other than it might look a little bit different.
Which is interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen the like seatbelt tensioners that they have to try to give you some of that G-force response. I thought that was an interesting product. I think some experience has one. I'm not sure who else, but I think there's some more out there too.
Oh yeah, that's not something I've heard of.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. I think though that's getting a little bit too realistic or too like, like, oh, let me strap into my rig and put my seatbelt on and put my gloves on, put my balaclava and helmet on, and I'm gonna be hot as shit in this race.
Well, I'm almost there. I do for the road racing now. I dug my old race shoes out of my race bag, and I wear those because my on the longer endurance stuff. I also have the Fanatic V3 pedals, and just wearing socks, my foot was getting sore. So I pulled the race shoes out for those, and it really helps. And with the VR, it's I can pretend I have a helmet on again, right?
Right, right, right.
But
Well, that's why I always told my friends at school. I was like, I can't wait to get a rig, and I'll put, fire suit on, gloves on, a helmet on, and I'll put the visor half crack, cool guy.
there's nothing worse than sitting in a car in the summer under the sun still waiting to go out onto the track and you're just dying. And then of course, whenever I was racing, we followed non-wing sprint cars, so there was red flags fairly often. So you're up there, you're in line, you're all strapped in, helmets on, ready to fly, and then the red flag comes out and you're just sitting there baking. It was terrible.
Yeah, one thing I had to learn with GTs, especially GT, like any of the sports car stuff, high downforce, high grip, is like to actually attack. Like I don't know if you've watched me doing much of the road driving, but the my driving style on the roadside is polar opposite from oval. I'm very passive and calculating when it comes to my oval stuff, but when it comes to the road stuff, I have gotten to be quite aggressive, and that's something I had to kind of force myself to learn is because those cars have just so much grip and braking power and everything. You have to learn to like attack every corner as far as you can, but not beyond the limit.
And it's different too from the GT3 versus the GTE. The GT3 car kind of lends itself to being driven more like a cup car, where you don't have all the grip and power that the GTE has. You kind of have to set into the corner and really think about what you're doing a lot more because it's slower, it's more momentum based. But the GTEs just are a whole different animal, and you really have to get used to driving those in a different way.
I know that Steven was planning on trying the Daytona 24 hour with us at Western PA this year. You had like what surgery on your hand was it?
Yeah, on my left hand, I got have like about an inch and a quarter incision just below my thumb, kind of at your where your palm meets your thumb right now. And I probably could race, but I decided giving it a week to heal is a much smarter idea. Like I can't really quite grip yet or anything, so I could drive with my right hand and just kind of control with my left. But it would have been a struggle and probably would have hurt myself. So I've taken this week off and hopefully I'll be back racing sometime this coming up week though.
Yeah, you could probably turn left just fine because I know like whatever direction I'm turning, the opposite shoulder usually hurts. So you probably could have done some oval stuff, but at Daytona, like my left shoulder is pretty worn out because of the two horseshoes, and that's what really got me.
Yeah, I was pretty upset. I really wanted to do that race. So John and Bobby Rafferty and I did the Petit Le Mans, which is what 10 hours at Road Atlanta, and I really really enjoyed it and had a good time. And we're having a good time doing the 3 hour VRS stuff on Sunday. So I was really looking forward to this. And but back in December, my thumb just started kind of sticking and having pain, and I couldn't really use it. And I was wearing a brace all the time, and I was like, okay, I just got to get this fixed. And they had a surgical opening right away, so I just took it, and now I'll be good to go after this.
Well,
Right, bite the bullet.
well, fear not.
Yep.
There's we Western PA runs many of the endurance races, like nearly all of them through the year. So next one's the Bathurst 12 hour, and then after that will be the 12 hours of Sebring, and somebody on our team will be running that. I'll probably be in it. So there's more opportunities for you to come race with us for sure.
I'm looking forward to it. So I don't know the next one that I'll be able to do, but if my schedule allows, I'll definitely jump in.
I know you tuned into the 24-hour race a couple different times on Kenny's stream and Chris's stream, so it was nice to know you were watching or at least interested, but really sucked not having you there because I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, I agree. I was on my computer. I thought about throwing the headset on and getting into Discord, but it just made me sad. So I decided just to stay away.
I completely understand.
Well, at least quick shout out to John for how he drove because he was not probably wasn't still feeling 100%, and he drove some really nice stints. I was watching like when you guys were in the night after you guys had your steering damage in the orange car, and he drove a really nice stint um, with a damaged car.
He was even saying how like okay and drivable it was, and like Zane and I were saying like that Kyle Busch quote, like it's fucked, like it was bad.
Yeah.
It was like 5 degrees off, and it was just skatey as hell through the bus stop.
Well, but you have to allow for again. John and I have been running the VRS endurance stuff, and we're good at crashing cars. So we've got experience driving broken cars.
Ah, that's the secret.
It all makes sense now.
Yep. Yeah. We don't like to call people out, but I usually begin, and rarely do I make it through unscathed.
Yeah, well, the first like 3 laps are always just a caution fest, or at least a wreck fest, because especially if you start like behind 20th, you're gonna have to dodge a lot of shit.
Oh yeah, and we're bottom split, right? We're both dirt racers, so our I rating is not super high, and it's just it's probably 70% of the time somebody else's fault, and 30% of the time, I forget where I'm at and I blow a corner and go ding a wall and just bend it up, take the toe off a little bit.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of the VRS stuff for probably like an entire year straight. I was on it almost every weekend unless school had to be a pain in the ass, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've been having a good time. It's, like I said, the sports cars have been fun. It's just whenever I tried doing some of the VRS sprint races, but to me, iRacing is, especially this last year, it's like my social interaction, right? I'm a pretty introverted person, so the whole pandemic hasn't been too harsh on me because I don't go do a lot anyway. But the iRacing has been a really good way to hang out with people and talk and chat and just kind of stay connected with the world a little bit.
Yeah, I bring it up nearly every week. Like this iRacing's allowed us to meet some really cool people we would not even know existed. I don't have any of my like real life friends that come play iRacing with me. All my friends on here are people that I met through iRacing. But I actually got a decent group of like friend circle now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that it doesn't necessarily like what I've got to be 20 years or a little bit more older than you guys, but we've got some common interests, and we all enjoy racing, and none of that stuff matters. Where it'd be probably a little bit harder for us to go hang out in real life sometimes, right? I've got kids that are almost your age, and I'm just at a different place and doing different things, but iRacing can bring us all together, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. Like that's the only reason I would show up to the sprint cars or whatever on the end of the night on Friday nights is just to show up with you guys and just shoot the shit during the race because that was like late night BRL is totally different when there's like 8 people in there or less than that because we're just having a ball.
And the boss man leaves half the time.
That was a good time because then I was in charge and it's a good thing Kenny Kibbe didn't show up because I was gonna disqualify everybody. As soon as he leave,
Yeah.
I'm like, "All right, boys, I'm in charge, so I got bad news if your name's Kenny Gibby."
Yes, every week.
Oh,
Yes.
jeez. I've built up quite a reputation.
Yeah,
It was good times though.
Um,
The racing maybe not, but we had fun.
that's what's important.
especially when I put it in the wall with a sick wall ride.
You and Justin had a bad habit of that as well, Justin Morton.
Yeah, well, too, there was the dirt late models, and that's, like, probably my favorite dirt car. I don't know why, probably because the Jeff Gordon scheme I had, but it was weird because John Hine would always put in these setups, and they were different for every track, and they all drove differently, and it was weird because sometimes you had to be on the throttle in order to not hit the wall, and sometimes you had to be off the throttle to get it to turn, and I don't know how you ever figured out how to do that during the race or in practice, but just like, hey, Austin, you need some constructive criticism or unwelcome criticism, like like this time.
Unsolicited advice.
Yes, that's the word, unsolicited advice. And they're like, this time, don't let off the throttle at all, and just see what happens. And like, sure enough, I'd look semi-competent.
Yeah, and it doesn't do you any favors going from the street stock into any of the other dirt cars because they just don't drive the same.
Yep. But the other thing we wanted to talk about was video games because you mentioned, a couple times during this that you played some video games like Gran Turismo. Um, were there any other video games that you really enjoyed or played a lot?
So I played, shooters. I think I didn't catch all of your guys' discussion last week, but it sounds like you went through the history of Call of Duty with the part I did catch. But I have quite a stack of Call of Duty games from the Xbox 360 and Xbox One, so I still play those. I just picked up, I think my wife picked it up for me for Christmas, the new Black Ops. So I was just starting to play that, and then my hand really started acting up, and so I haven't been able to play. But that's probably where I've spent most of my time, over the last 10 years. Before that, I started my first kind of online gaming was the SOCOM series on the PlayStation 2, which I had a lot of hours into as well. More recently, I've been playing Half-Life Alyx on. I've got the new HP Reverb G2, and the clarity is phenomenal. And if you have VR, go check out Half-Life Alyx. It's really fun.
Um, so do you play on Xbox? Is that like you have an Xbox One account?
I do.
Ooh,
Yep.
we'll have to add you. We both play on Xbox.
Yeah, we're pretty annoying
You
on Xbox.
know, what do you guys play then?
Oh, I play all kinds of stuff. Like it'll be anything from like racing games to I do play like shooters, Call of Duty and stuff like that, and then like I'll play like some other different story kind of games. Like I think the next game I'm gonna get into is like Mafia, the remastered original Mafia game. And I've been thinking about
Halo.
purchasing Hitman 3, but I'm not sure yet. Halo I have
Yeah.
played. Yep. Um,
Yeah, I've played. I don't know if you guys have seen the Trials games, like the motorcycle
yep,
Trials.
I have that.
I have played the crap out of all of those on mostly on Xbox. I really really enjoy those games. I don't get to play them as much as I'd like sometimes because my Xbox is set up in our main family room, and my wife gets tired of me doing like the same extreme checkpoint 200 times until I finally make it.
Yeah, that keeps me away from those games. I get too enraged with the trials. It's cool, but I can't sit and play it that long.
Yeah, most things I can't, but I don't know what it is about that game, but I take on the challenge until I can do it. So I've gotten up, and the most recent one is Trials Rising, and they have like ninja level tracks. I can't pass any of those, and so I've reached my point and I've stopped. I don't even try those anymore. But I'll go and like watch people on YouTube or Twitch doing these ninja tracks, and it's just I don't know what kind of broken physics they've put in that game, but it's just unreal what these people figured out how to do.
Do you ever?
So, I've played racing games on consoles, like I said, forever. The first Gran Turismo was huge, but I was thinking about what was the first kind of racing that I did. So, I'm sure you guys have heard of the Atari 2600, which was my first console when I was a kid. And there was an Indy 500 game, and you had like a paddle controller that you used for like kind of a breakout kind of game. It was just a turned it, and you could use that as a steering wheel. And there was an oval track on this Indy 500 game that was ice, and I literally would do hours of that pretending it was a dirt track sliding around on the ice.
Well, that's interesting.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
go try to find that one on YouTube,
Oh
and you'll be
boy.
like, "Oh my god, you thought this was fun?"
Well, it was all you had. Like
It is
even
all
the
we had.
1995 Papyrus game looks like complete dog shit, but like it was all you had. It was cutting edge.
Oh yeah, that was unreal when that came out. Back in that time frame. So in like the '95, I would have been almost out of college. I graduated college in '96. So I had a old flight yoke and rudder pedals because I did a lot of flight simulator back then too. And then when like Papyrus came out, with your flight yoke and two pedals, you could use for sim racing also. So it was a great time, and it seemed really awesome back then.
Well, for the time it was. Like I actually look at NASCAR Racing 2003 and go like, man, like this, it doesn't look that bad considering it's so old. Like
Yeah.
for the time, it was cutting edge. And a lot of the features that have carried over into other games like iRacing. I mean, it was ahead of its time.
Yeah, for sure. And then, once you get into the Xbox 360, even newer and had the Forza games, yet it just keeps getting better and better and better. Like now, I'll still play some like Dirt Rally or something on the Xbox, but I can't play that game on my rig at all. I have to use a controller on Dirt Rally for whatever reason. I can't make my decent equipment work on it.
Yeah, I've played Dirt Rally or Dirt 4 and Dirt Rally 2.0 on my rig, and it seems to work pretty well. That's a game that really keeps you on your toes and like really, if you turn like the aids and stuff off, it really puts you in your place.
Oh yeah, I'm getting to the point in life where I can't do it anymore. But any racing game my whole life, the first thing I go in is turn off all the assists, put it on like hardest difficulty, and usually I was pretty good. That Dirt Rally, I'm trash though. I still enjoy it, but I'm just complete trash.
One game I thought I could never do rally because I was like, I don't know where to turn and I don't know how much you turn and they just yell at you so fast and I don't know what I'm doing. But I got WRC 7 in like a racing game humble bundle for PC and it's a lot of fun and it's pretty believable. Even with some of the assists off, you can still do largely okay. But I'm kind of just there to like have fun and play the game. So I'll just knock the difficulty down so I can win, get the achievements and move on. But
Yeah,
Yeah, another thing that I picked up recently on I had, Steam sale, right? You got to be careful, but is a it's like a motocross game that's actually really good and really fun. Again, you got to play it with the controller, and you're using both sticks to lean and do all those things with, and then triggers for throttle and brake. But it's really challenging, but really fun. So if
is
you're
it
looking for something different,
MotoGP?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. I know my dad bought that and he had a lot of fun with it. He was really looking forward to it. Not my game, but I know it's really liked.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I picked up a couple others over, kind of I was off for 2 weeks over the holidays there, so my thumb was messed up, so I didn't get to do a lot of gaming. But I tried Death Stranding. Have you guys seen that?
seen
Yes.
gameplay of it, but I've never played it.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful game, but like I played a little bit of it and it just didn't it didn't do anything for me. You walk around. So I actually that's the first thing I've ever like returned on Steam. Like it was gorgeous, but it you just walked. I was like, I'm not looking for a walking simulator.
One game I
And go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say one game I recently finished was Gears 5, which is my first Gears of War title that I've ever really played, and it was okay, I suppose, but I wasn't really attached to the series. I was wondering if you've played any of the Gears games.
I've never touched any of the Gears games. I've had some friends of mine say that I really should. I think I just don't know enough about them. The last couple of years, what I really put a ton of time in was Red Dead Redemption 2. I
Yes.
absolutely love
Yes,
that game.
Fantastic.
we all played and beat
Oh
that
yeah.
game.
I have not beat it because I like playing as Arthur. I want to do
Uh,
all the stuff first and I just can't do all the stuff.
Oh man, spoiler alert. Come
yeah,
on
really.
now. The game's only been
It's
out like
been
2 or 3 years.
2 years.
Yeah, and like that, I'm anymore. I'm not really the kind of guy to play a story game and play it over again. But I think if I ever did, that's gonna be the first one that I ever replay because it was just that good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Fallout.
started a second playthrough on it, but I've barely gotten anywhere because really what started it was to do all the challenges and make it through all that stuff. And it's just still I've been wanting to play it again. I'm just waiting for my hand to heal up, and that's probably the first thing I'm going back to.
I've been trying to kill all these like different colored birds for like probably at least a year, but it's impossible to get them to spawn, and they're always in weird spots at different times of the day. And like, I fuck if I can ever do that.
Yeah, I'm stuck on. I have to find a possum playing possum and kill it, and then I'll be damned if possums don't spawn anymore.
Yeah,
Yep.
I never focused on like getting like all the animals and the fish and all that stuff. I just played it for the. I played as many of the like side missions as I could, but I don't really care as much about the like achievements and getting all that stuff.
I'm trying to get the rattlesnake hat and have Arthur wear it and like, run around with that, but like it's impossible to get.
It takes some time. I spent a bunch of time snake hunting, so there's a couple spots you can go and snake spawn pretty regularly. I'll have to think of where those were at again though.
Well, but then you got to get like the good pelts and like, geez, like I'm not a good enough aim on that, or like I'll just shoot him with the wrong thing and like, great, my 3-star pelt is a 1-star pelt because I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I believe it is small game arrows for the snakes, if I remember right.
Learn something new every day. I'll have to go back and play that game.
Oh, you go into your compendium, look at the animal, and it will tell you what weapon to use for a perfect pelt.
Interesting.
See, he's just the messenger. Listen to the messenger.
Yeah, I mean that game is
Time.
just so beautiful though. It's great. I
Yeah.
had so much fun in it.
Well, I always liked.
Fallout 4. Oh, go ahead, Kenny.
Well, I just always like those games that like in the story aspect of it too. You get kind of a connection with like the characters and stuff. You're actually like invested in it, like a good movie kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the gameplay and the actual combat and stuff, isn't like the greatest thing in the whole world, but just the whole experience, the graphics and the story and the characters is just so well done that it makes up for any downfall that it may have.
Well, it's interesting to see too, like you get invested into the characters, and I'll talk to my other friends that play the game. And it's like, yeah, I really like that guy, and like the one guy, like fuck that guy, like he's a jerk. But it's so interesting to see that they can actually make people like you care about the characters.
And like I always like to I like games that are set in like a realistic setting in the past. So like that game, being set at like kind of around turn of the century is interesting me to look at like how life kind of is in this old setting, or like that's why I've always liked Assassin's Creed, because it's kind of as close as you can get to a realistic representation of like what was life like in ancient Greece kind of thing. Like it's not perfectly realistic, but like looking at the architecture and just like the way that the cities look and stuff was interesting to me too.
Yeah, I've been watching my son started playing through Valhalla, the Assassin's Creed, and that's been interesting to watch.
Yep, I got away with it or away from it for a little while, but I played it for a little bit when it first came out. I need to get back into it, but yeah, Assassin's Creed games I've been pretty interested in for a long time.
Fallout 4 was another one of those games that I played, and like I have a lot of other friends, and it's neat to talk about like what decisions you made and what playthroughs. And I'll never play Fallout like replay through it because I haven't beaten it, and I will never go back to it and beat it because it's been so long. Because I wanted to do all the collectibles and be friends with everyone for as long as I could. Chose a side.
Yeah, I've played through a few of the Fallouts, and Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and I haven't gotten all the way through Fallout 4 either, just life got in the way or whatever, and I haven't come back to that, but I actually started a new playthrough of Fallout New Vegas, gosh, sometime last year, and that one's actually really good. It's not gonna be top-notch graphics, but the game and the story is pretty good.
Have you played 76?
No, I stayed away from it. I read the reviews and just ran the other way.
Yeah, I pre-ordered it. My buddy from college and I were gonna play it in the co-op, and it came out and it just sucked, and I have not touched it.
It seems like they've been doing updates, so I don't know if it's gotten any better, but I'm just passing it by.
I've heard it's gotten better, but I refuse to play it.
I think that's completely fair. So, I've also been looking at, I'm interested in Cyberpunk, but I'm not sure if I would enjoy it or not, so I haven't decided if I'm gonna go in on that one.
I would stay away from it for now, and well, PC is okay, but if you're gonna buy it on console, I would stay away from it for now because it's way too buggy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
think if I
largely
get it, I'm gonna do
just okay on
console, or
PC.
I'm not gonna do console. I'm gonna do PC on that one because I got a decent graphics card and stuff now.
Yeah, I pre-ordered it on console, and it it was nearly unplayable, so I've put it down until it's gonna maybe be better. My roommate bought it as well on pre-order, and he actually played through it all and just kind of stuck it out and beat the game. But it's not gonna be fun to me to deal with that, so I'm gonna just wait.
Yeah. My challenge is, so, like, if we talk about Call of Duty, and I think you guys have touched on this, in previous weeks, but, I tend to like things that are somewhat, they're video games, but are somewhat more believable or realistic. When you start getting into, like, the advanced warfare kinda stuff and cybernetics and, advanced weaponry that's just not realistic, it kinda loses me, so I'm a little worried that Cyberpunk will not, like, engage for me.
Yeah, if you're more into realistic stuff, you might not like Cyberpunk, but I mean, if you are into sci-fi stuff, you'll probably think it's cool.
Yeah, I'm kinda, like, right on that edge there, like, oh gosh, what's the other game? It was like a big your underwater world, the name
Subnautica,
escapes me. No, it's, more of a Fallout type of a game, gosh.
BioShock.
Yes, yes, BioShock. I started those, and as soon as it kinda got into the perks and kinda magic-y kinda stuff, I just kinda walked away from it, but I thought that was a really interesting aesthetic and storyline. It kinda lost me in the magic-y kinda stuff.
Yeah, I played through BioShock 2. Creepy as hell, but I
Yeah,
enjoyed
for
it.
sure. I
Yeah,
started playing that one, sitting, I had a finished basement at my old house, and that's where my consoles and everything were, and down there at 1 or 2 in the morning in the complete pitch black playing BioShock, and I'm not gonna lie, I jumped and got scared a few times.
Yeah, Cyberpunk looks good, and I think it's just not my type of game the way it's all futuristic. It looks cool, it seems cool. I think I would like to watch someone play it, like a YouTuber or one of my buddies, like kind of the same way like I would watch like a sibling of mine play it. None of my siblings are gonna get it and play it, but it'd be cool to watch parts of it, I think.
I'm pretty open to like whether it's supposed to be realistic or not supposed to be. I'm okay with that. I'm more drawn to like is the story a good story? Am I going to get attached to the characters, things like that. But one thing is like if a game is trying to be realistic. Like I hate it when there's like a I get picky when there's like a point in like a supposedly realistic game that's like really super cheesy. I'm like, okay, it just kind of like it gets me frustrated.
Yep, both of my kids like to play Skyrim, and again, I'll look over my son's shoulder while he's playing it or whatever, and it's all magic and this and that, and I walk away. I don't know what it is. It's just not fun for me.
Yeah, it seems cool. I like how it's old timey and there's parts of it that seem interesting, and I know a lot of people have had a lot of hours invested into it, but it's just like I'd probably play it for an hour and be like, this is too medieval magic for me and just quit.
Yep, and then I go like get stuck on a trials checkpoint for the next hour instead. I don't know how that's better for me, but it is.
Or I'll go play more Minecraft for the 2 millionth hour and somehow it's still fun.
See, my son, I whenever he was little, I would play Minecraft with him, but I don't get it. Like I'm like, how can I win? If I can't win, I don't know why I'm doing this.
Well, it's weird because it's like Legos. You kind of have to be like self-starting and want to like make projects for yourself, like building a giant castle or building a farm for something to take advantage of game mechanics. And it's really weird. You have to be like, and I'll probably get flack for this, but a certain kind of like autistic for it. And I'll be honest, like that is just my level of autism to like go in there and play it for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I get it, and then we'll loop this back to racing a little bit. That was some of my challenge with the real car. So, like I said, my older brother, he's a good fabricator, he's an engineer, and he likes the challenge of working on the motor and working on the chassis and doing all of those things. And those are all a bit above my mental pay grade. Like it just doesn't make sense to me like it does him. So I'm not good at it, and it's really hard. So I just want to go drive stuff, and I really enjoy driving, but I'm just a shit mechanic.
I wanted to give you some quick hitters here before we let you go. Some questions that we ask every guest usually. Um, First, do you have like a favorite um, dirt track in iRacing and in real life, whether it be from driving or from a spectator standpoint?
Um, I don't particularly have a favorite. If we think about iRacing, I probably like Volusia as well as any of them. I dislike Eldora very strongly because I get tired of just driving around the damn wall. I think that has such potential. But Volusia is probably my favorite one. Although Lernerville, I do enjoy that you can fly off over the edge and have the risk factor there. So it's probably between one of those. In real life, from a dirt track, Lucas Oil Speedway in Wheatland, Missouri is just a gorgeous facility. So if anybody wants to make a trip and go see a really cool facility, they have like the big screen, they have concrete and gravel pits instead of dirt and grass, and it's just really, really nice facility. That's a cool place to go.
And I just thought of this one. If you didn't run mod lights, or if you could choose any like real life dirt discipline to run, is there any particular that you'd want over the others?
Uh, Not particularly. I would probably run some sort of a, super late model if I just could run anything I wanted. Outside of dirt, I would probably go do some sort of sports car racing though. I'd go get a Porsche and go run around road tracks.
If you could be in like one race, like whether it's the Chili Bowl or something else, something else prestigious, what would it be? Like had a good car for it, competitive, and you could just go in and race.
Oh man, I, I don't think I even have an answer for that. It probably honestly I would want to go if I had the talent level. I would want to go drive like a Formula One car because I just think that those things are awesome beasts, and I would love to see if I could do it.
Do you have a favorite like road track, either in iRacing or real life or both?
Um, so I really like Laguna Seca. I know it seems like a lot of people hate it, but my like for it comes from the original Gran Turismo game on the PlayStation, where there was a one of the challenges was you had to drive a Dodge Viper around Laguna Seca in a certain time. And it took me laps and laps and laps and hours to do that. So that track's just always kind of stuck with me.
Very cool.
All right, well, geez, thanks for coming on board with us, Stephen. We had a nice long conversation. Actually, I didn't know you had such an interest in video games. So that's kind of an added thing that we all have in common. I'll have to add you on Xbox. We'll have to chat and play sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds good. It's a KC Dirt Fan on Xbox. Go ahead and send it over.
All right, there are a bunch of my
yeah, cool.
viewers. All five of them are going to probably add you now.
Feel free. You'll find me once my hand's better. You'll find me in some Black Ops hardcore lobbies.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun having you. I'll have to have you back on in the future at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, anytime. I didn't even get to tell any of like my fun street racing stories from my high school and college days. So we
Well,
can do
that's
that
why
at
we'll
some
have to
point.
have you back.
Yep. Yeah, there's a few guests that we've had on that we just haven't been able to jam pack all of the content that we'd like to get to in one go. So we'll definitely be hitting you up for a second go at it here sometime.
Yeah, please do, and kudos to you guys. I think you're doing a nice job on it. I'm sure you don't have billions of followers, but for those of us that kind of know the people that you've been talking to and running these iRacing circles, it's been fun, and you're doing a nice job. So thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Stephen.
thank
Yeah.
you.
We'll keep plugging away at it, and I'm sure we'll talk to you soon. And you're free to disconnect.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stephen.
So that was Stephen Spees. That was actually a really fun interview. Kind of almost just turned into just a regular conversation between friends, which is kind of our goal when we have our guests come in.
Yeah, mostly just talking. It's nice to have them go off on their own tangents and kind of, self-speaking on their part for the first, half hour, 15 minutes. But once you get into that chat, that's where it really gets enjoyable, I think, for us and the viewers. And that was probably the first one in a while where there was like never a dull moment, and I never was like, looking at the time to see like, man, do we have to stretch this out or like checking my phone for something?
Yeah, it was actually the only concern I had was that we were running a little bit long, which is a good problem to have. Um, but yeah, I knew there was going to be stuff that we weren't going to get to with Steven, but we'll have to have him on a second time. I'm sure he's got some really good stories.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable.
So I guess we'll dedicate the last a little bit of time in the race. We all did the 24 hours of Daytona on Friday night into Saturday, and so I was on Western PA iRacing Yellow in the third split. You were on Western PA Orange for the eighth split. We were in the LMP2 cars. Um, Whichever one of us wants to go first, because we both had completely different experiences.
Well, we can go kind of back and forth between stints and hours. So we did the truck series like we were saying. So we got into the race. I think, excuse me, about 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half into the overall race, just in time to see the first driver kind of finish with their stint and then get the second driver in there. I think you went fourth in the lineup. I went fifth. I was the last person to do their first drive, sort of in about 2 a.m. So I'll let you talk about your stint first.
Yeah, so my first stint I got, it was like 11:11 p.m. ish Eastern, and I we got in, and I had a car that was four position battling with me right away, and he was behind me, and I thought he was really fast, so I let him go, right? And I was following behind him, and then he started making all these mistakes. He started going wide. He started getting tail happy, and I just got fed up. I'm like, okay, I'm getting around you. I'm gonna get wrecked if I'm behind you any longer. So I started trying to pass him, and I thought that with it being early and that I let him go, that he would have let me go. Well, it didn't happen. So I fought with him for a while, and then eventually I finally got around him and just kind of rode around until my last or that stint was over, and handed the car off. But that was like my first um, stint. I don't remember what position we were in at the time. We started 12th. I think we were probably around like back half of the top 10 at the time.
So we got back from the truck series. Ron was in the car, and Ron just had really, really poor luck. I mean, he was going through the International Horseshoe, and the same thing happened to me 2 nights earlier. A Corvette was on the outside of him and just got way too tail happy, lost it, and just went straight into the side of him. Popped the car up in the air, kind of sideways, and messed up the steering and really damaged us in terms of straight line speed. So we pitted. We lost a lap or two. And then Ron got back out in the car. He was driving around and coming out of the bus stop. We were behind two GTEs, and there was another LMP2, I think, behind us. The first GTE messed up and missed the bus stop exit, and he was trying to correct it. The GTE behind him was going to go high to miss him, and then Ron was going to go high to pass the second GTE car. Ron had no idea the first guy got out of shape, so the second GTE came up and blocked him. We nailed that guy, punted him into the first GTE, and got railed by the car behind us. So we lost like I think 8 laps in total by that point. So Zane went out, and Zane Froze, our first real life racing guest, the second guest we had on here, went out. He had a good time, and then I got in the car, and it was just Zane and I just shooting the shit for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, that's the thing with the All Star car. You guys have the most fun, at least.
We had a good time avoiding the wrecks, and there's a couple different clips of like wreck avoidance and us just dying. And
Yeah, and I got my second time in the car was at like 4 a.m. just after, and yeah, I don't remember where exactly we were, but the leaders, there's two leaders, and they had set an absolutely
Oh,
crazy. Oh,
yeah.
Kurtz006 has followed. Thank you for that. I wonder if that's a certain Kurt that we know.
might maybe possibly be.
Thank you, anyways. But yeah, like we the two leaders got like a 3 lap lead on everybody else, and they were just setting a crazy pace. And I don't remember when it was pretty far in where the guy in second actually had a problem. He blew the bus stop, and um, he like slid through on the other side, and he hit the outside wall and messed up their steering. And I think they ended up wrecking again later on, and they retired, so they were out of it. And we were just kind of slowly making up spots, and we were getting into this position where we were, but based on how we were pitting, we were rotating from like seventh all the way up to like third, and we just kept flip flopping. But then one by one through the race, um, the guys would have problems. Guys would have problems, and we weren't. We just um, kept just plugging away, and so eventually, every time we'd cycle up to a higher position, and then eventually we were like solidly in third and fourth, and that's when we thought we possibly had a chance at it.
Yep. So I got in the car and the steering was kind of messed up. It was really on edge. It handled really, really weird, just because the steering was off. So I went out there and I started like seeing how fast I could push the car. And obviously, you're just running around at 90% in these endurance races because finishing it is pretty much a win in and of itself. It's a miracle if you just finish, especially in a good spot. So I was out there and I was just there's probably like 1 or 2 people that passed me on speed the entire race, and it was the people in like first and second, or if there was somebody on new tires and I was on old tires, and I just like, you know what, it's not worth fight with you. So you just go on, be stupid. Hopefully you fence your shit and we'll pass you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times uh, these endurance races obviously come down to attrition a lot of times, and like we were making up these spots, and we were like almost 4 laps down to the leaders or the leader, and we were like flip flopping. We were sometimes getting into second place based on pitting, and then the leader, who by the way had one driver race like over half of their race. They had 3 drivers total, and the one raced like over half of the whole event. Um, he disconnected, like he throughput it out while he was driving, and it took but they were able to reconnect and have another driver come in, but it took their lead from 4 laps down to almost 4 laps down to almost 2 laps. So we were basically about 2 laps down, and so we rode around. We're like, okay, and then later on they had some more problems. Like they blew one corner, they didn't hit anything, but then they got into another accident where a GT car, Porsche, spun off the grass going into the first horseshoe and came back across the track and hit the lead car in the side, and then they spun out. So then they had steering damage. So they actually raced the last few hours with about a 5-degree steering wheel offset, like what you guys were dealing with. And we were hoping they were going to have more problems, and they just didn't. And then that second place car that we were battling with ended up beating us. So we ended up third. Another thing that was, I think, the most dramatic part of the race, I didn't really have that many problems this year, but JR had some issues with traffic, and one notable thing he had is the last time he was coming out in the car, he got in the car, came out of the pits, and there was a GT car had spun across the pit lane, like access road, the exit road, and he was just parked right in the middle, and he wouldn't move. So like he moved back one way and then he moved back the other way, and he wouldn't actually move out of our way, so JR had no choice but to just stop and wait for him. We lost probably 10-15 seconds waiting for him to get going again. I don't think that would have made a difference in where we finished, but it was just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, my first stint was the steering wheel was off. The second stint, the steering wheel was still off because iRacing just doesn't care about steering problems. Like you could fix it in a real car, but iRacing just does not care. So I went out. My first stint was okay. Second stint, I was trying to pass like this Corvette just blew the kink because his wheel quote unquote disconnected. And so this guy sat there for like probably 10 or 15 seconds, coming out of the West Horseshoe down the straightaway towards turn six. And all of a sudden, he just like his wheel connected. So he just decided to drive straight back onto the track. There's this Corvette that went around him on the right and into the grass, and I went to the left, still on the track, but the Corvette that went into the grass just, I guess he was said to be stupid and like, I need to get back to the track right now, and just fucking nailed me in the middle of the car and sent me into the wall by turn six. I flew up in the air and then landed somewhere, probably, I think, the opposite side of the track. We had a tow. We had 25 minutes of required repairs or something, so we lost like 15 laps, and that really killed us. Luckily, the steering got fixed, but like I'd still rather have broken steering and the 15 laps back. So it sucked, but it is what it is. Stupid people are stupid, and when you're around a bunch of squirrels, you're gonna get hit by a nut. So the third stint I was driving and my screen went completely black, but I still had feeling in the wheel. Then it came back as green, and then I saw iRacing again. So it fixed itself in a matter of like 2 or 3 seconds. It felt like an eternity for me, but my sound was gone. And this is like 2 or 3 laps into my stint. So I drove the rest of that stint without sound. And then I came back into the pits to get tires. I turned my TV off and turned it back on. I still had no sound. So I drove the rest of the second stint without sound. Um, and then once I got out of the car, I just reset the power of my PC and it seemed to fix it. I don't know what went wrong or what happened, but um, that really blew. And then the fourth stint, it was largely okay. Again, really really fast lap times. We should not have been in that split. And my I rating is pretty low for how fast I am because I never do official races. And if I do them, I get wrecked on lap one, turn one. So I'll just like, it's not fun. The car's trash. It's a 30-minute race. I'm not going to race 5 laps down just because. So I'll just quit. Or like team races is pretty much all I do otherwise. And if you win, you get plus 30 I rating, and we never win. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, it be what it be. So and you guys too, before you got wrecked again, we're actually starting to make up spots again. You guys dropped into like the what, like 13th, 14th somewhere, and then you were up
Yeah,
in
we
like
dropped to
8th
like
or somewhere.
18th. We dropped to like 18th or 17th, and then John had just a really solid stint and put us up into 13th. Zane had another really solid stint and kept us in 18th, flirting with 12th. and just nobody else had problems during Zane's stint, but he was putting in a lot of really fast laps. And then on my stint, we finally like kept the good momentum going, and I got us up to like 10th. And then I think Chris, Ron, and John were back in the car while I was asleep, got us up to 8th. And then I was in the car running in 8th, and then just got killed by that Corvette. So we shot ourselves in the foot a couple times as the race went on. One time Ben came in and started talking to us about this handsome Verizon guy he had at his house. His words, handsome, not mine. Just kidding. Um, and we just completely missed pit road, so we had to tow. And we just did some other stuff that wasn't probably the brightest move, but it is what it is. Probably cost us like 3 laps overall, which we were 30 laps down. So 10% of overall stupidity, I guess, is on our shoulders.
Yeah, we can just blame Ben, I suppose.
I mean, really, it's everybody's fault.
Well, I hope you had a good first experience with Western PA and the endurance side. They're things that you don't do that often every year, so it's fun to do them.
I mean, it was just like what I did with A51. It's a bunch of good guys, and you're having fun in the race, and you're hoping it's just a race of attrition. That's all these endurance races ever are, unless you're in a high split. And even then, there's still, shit happens. You have disconnects. Somebody makes a mistake and they hit a wall, and you're involved in it, or they just lose 3 laps and you get a spot out of it. It is what it is. So it was largely the same, but it was nice to hang out with all of them.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I was really excited for this race and paid off. We had a really good run in the yellow car, and now we got so to finalize. Yellow car finished third in the third split, and orange car finished 12th in the eighth split. So now we head to Bathurst in like 4 weeks, I think it is. So Bathurst 12 hour. You thinking about doing that one?
Yeah, I mean, and just real quick, back to Daytona. I think there are only 2 cars faster than us because when I was out there, I passed like literally every car, like LMP2, GTE. I was just passing them, and I was like putting seconds on them. And there was one point in time I was like catching the car ahead of us by like 2.5 seconds a lap, right? And it's just like to feel so fast in that race was just phenomenal. And like everybody was just as fast on our team, so we were just kicking ass and taking names. But yeah, for Bathurst, I definitely would like to. It's a tough track. Um, so I'll think about it. It's one of those tracks where I probably take my 90% down to like 80%, and that's all I feel comfortable doing because I really don't want to be the one to wreck the car.
Oh, I love that track. Yeah, back to Daytona too for us. It's kind of funny that the winning team actually did run the fastest lap time, but Tim ran a time that was only 5 thousandths off of that. And then looking at average lap time for the whole team, we actually were faster. We were actually the fastest. It looks like, at least out of the top 10 or more. Um, the elite winning car had a 138.4 as their average lap time, and we had a 137.9. We're the only ones in the 137s. So we really put together a really good race. So lastly, little bit of getting around to it. You make any progress on your Jeff Gordon car?
Yeah, I got it all painted up the body wise. I still have to put clear coat on it. It was really difficult to paint like the 2 colors, especially because it's like around a stripe and it's a curved stripe for the rainbows. So that was really difficult. I did a largely okay job on it. When I was taking off the masking tape for the day glow orange, the fluorescent orange for the front and rear, I like must have scraped the paint or something flipping over the mask on the top is like a cocoon sorta because I'm not good at masking. I just put a bunch of newspaper and a bunch of tape on it. So I got to sand that down and clear it, but then I can put the decals on. So probably, hopefully, it'll be done in a week.
Sounds cool. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode number. What was that? 9 again? Yeah.
I think 9 or 10. Yep.
Or yeah, episode. Yeah, I don't know. 9, I think.
Hopefully.
Um. Anyways, yeah. So great interview with Steven Spees. We'll I'm looking forward to the next race that he's able to do for endurance wise with us. That'll be interesting to see how he does. I'm sure he'll be a fun to hang out with for 12 or 24 hours or whatever.
Yep, should be a blast.
All right, well, back to next week. We'll be back to a little more normal schedule, hopefully. I got some special events I'm planning on, at least one for sure. I'm planning on attempting here in the next coming weeks, so we'll be touching base on that sometime. But yeah, anyways, thanks again to Steven for coming on board with this. Thanks to Austin for co-hosting as always. And I'm Kenny Kibbe, NG Kibbs, as your host. Thanks again, Kurt Smith, for the follow on Twitch today. And yeah, we'll see you guys next Sunday. And have a good rest of your weekend and Godspeed.